Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told out of Voice of Radio, though you can see my quarantine beard is coming along rather nicely. And we've reached the final of the Dragon Gym Challenge. This is the alternate rules format tournament, the lovely Stefan Eriksson, the lovely folks from Dragon Shield, and the lovely me. Well, I think I'm lovely anyway. My wife doesn't think I'm too bad. All put together because it seemed like fun with 8 lovely people joining in. We gave each player a typing, and they were only allowed to use that colour or colourless, though their deck must be more of their colour than colourless. They are limited to 2 of each card rather than the usual 4, and we've banned Pokemon EX and GX, although EX is a kind of banned for being rotated anyway. We've allowed Prism Stars and its standard format and all of that. We've reached a final, and we've got the lovely Joe Bernard and his fighting deck with products like this. And we've got the lovely David Hockman playing Darkness with products like this. Both players have already won 2 games. We'll talk about that as we go through the game. This is a very, very fun one. Both excellent players, both good decks. And if you want to see 2 players really clawing at every little trick in their deck to try and eke out victory, this is a game for you. So grab yourselves a nice cold beverage, sit back, relax, and enjoy the final of the Dragon Gym Challenge. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are off. It is the final. On the top, we got Joe. He has started with an Diancie Prism Star. On the bottom, we've got David. He has started with a Spiritomb. I know which of those 2 starters I think is a slightly better thing. Go, David. Whoop, whoop. No favoritism here, ladies and gentlemen. What we've got is 2 lovely people, 2 people I would both consider close friends, 2 people I speak to fairly regularly, 2 people that I was pushing for inclusion in this tournament because they're lovely dudes who are very good at Pokemon and they've proven they can build a heck of a deck. Now, Joe is playing a great ball here. Look at the top 7 cards of his deck. Find a Pokemon, put it into his hand. He seems to have got himself a Farfetch. Now, we did see him putting in work with that against Josh, using all of his Air Balloon and Spell Tag to do some tricks of his Psychic deck. Joe was able to use them against him. And it does look like he's using Pokemon Communication to get rid of a Stack Attacker. But which Pokemon is it that he actually wants instead? Who knows, ladies and gentlemen? Who knows? I mean, you're going to imagine it's probably Hitmonchan. Joe's deck does revolve around Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, and Hitmontop. And the general theory is that you've got Hitmonchan, does 30 damage and switches to the bench. Hitmonlee, that if you use it after you've used Hitmonchan, you do 90 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And then you've got Hitmontop, that does 60 damage to each Pokemon on your opponent's side of the field if you use Hitmonlee previously. Now, I was going to say there is one other option Joe might go for here, and it is Minccino. And the reason it's Minccino is extremely simple. Minccino evolves into Cinccino. Cinccino is Joe's draw engine in this deck. You discard a card from your hand, you draw 2 cards, job's a good un. Oh, he does actually have another Stack Attacker as well, and he gets an energy on it nice and early, and I kind of like that play. Joe used Stack Attacker beautifully against Josh in his second round match. Didn't use it round 1. Really against Alessandro's water deck, but he did use it game 2, and it absolutely came in handy. Of course, we should mention Joe was seen in round 1 taking down Alessandro Cremascoli's water deck, and in round 2 taking down Josh's Psychic deck, and I do not have a bracket in front of me, right, so go memory. And it looks like David took down Birdkeeper Toby's grass deck in the first round, and then in the second round he took down Jack's fire deck in one of the best Pokemon sets I've ever seen, standard format or otherwise. So we do see David playing a quick ball here. He's going to go and grab himself a basic Pokemon. Does actually discard a Rosa to do so. Rosa, of course, good supporter card. If you had a Pokemon KO'd last turn, you search for a Pokemon and a trainer card and a basic energy. In a format where you've got to give up 6 individual KOs to lose, it's a pretty good option. Unfortunately, it's got to get rid of it. And when you need a basic Pokemon, right, you need a basic Pokemon. There's no way around it, unfortunately. Rosa's all well and good, but Rosa activates when a Pokemon gets KO'd. So if Spiritomb gets KO'd, David can't play Rosa because there's no other basic. And he does choose to go for Ditto here. Of course, David's got a bunch of evolutions in his deck. He's got Weavile that punishes abilities, which if we look at Joe's board at the moment, that Weavile could be really good. He's got his Cinccino as well. He's got Umbreon, which is a nice revenge attacker. He's got his Obstagoon. And Obstagoon has got to be the play here for David. That's what he's going for. Obstagoon has an attack which makes it immune to basic Pokemon next turn. And if we look at Joe's deck, we've got Stack Attacker, we've got Buzzwole, Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, Hitmontop, etc. It's a very basic deck. Now we do see... Oh, so we see David playing Marnie there just saying, yeah, my hand was not a good hand. I should mention, as well as, being good friends with Joe and David, myself, Joe and David are good friends, so there's no animosity here. I'm a little bit jealous, actually. I might go back and watch this just with the table mic on, because I watched a couple little clips just to make sure that the game was lined up properly, and they're just joking and laughing and having an absolute whale of a time. They seem to be enjoying themselves, which is lovely. Although you see neither of them is playing in darkness here. We at least have two finalists who are in vaguely the same time zone. David's an hour ahead, but I think Joe forgives him. So not a bad setup from David here. He's got the energy on the Zigzagoon, which is what he wants. He wants to be attacking with Obstagoon as soon as he possibly can. And we see Joe getting rid of a Hitmontop to grab a couple of cards using Cinccino that he has now evolved into. So having a Ditto, the Zigzagoon with an energy, the Spiritomb in the active with a damage, it's not a bad start for David. Not perfect, but as far as starts go, I've seen worse starts from a lot of people. And it looks like... What's Joe got cooking here? So he's got a Quick Ball. This one, getting rid of a Tate and Liza. This one you've got to imagine is for Hitmonchan. Of course, he is going to need an Air Balloon or something along those lines to get his Diancie Prism Star out of the active. Man cannot live on active Diancie alone. Well, I suppose he probably could, but it wouldn't go terribly well for this game. No. Joe's making me look stupid again. It's another Minccino. Good news is, this is obviously an alternate rules format. We are restricting players to only playing one of each type of card. What that means is, next time Joe searches his deck, he's not allowed to go and get himself a Minccino. Although I don't think he plays Ditto. I could be wrong about that. Of course... There's a very good reason Joe is going for Minccino here, and that is because it's the only answer he's got to Obstagoon. It's as simple as that. It is the only evolution he plays, and he's only had a Hitmonchan in hand. Because Hitmonchan is still a good attacker against anything in David's deck that isn't Obstagoon, but basically Joe is looking here to have an answer. Joe and David are not stupid people. They know the game extremely well. They're both active players. They're both active commentators. They are both extremely active. They know the metagame. David gets the evolution to Lanoon there. So, absolutely, both players are ready for this, and both players are aware of the other's strategy. David knows that Obstagoon can shut Joe's deck down. So does Joe. I can't remember if Joe's playing any Pokemon Catcher here. If he is, that would certainly be a very nice option for him to try and take down the Lanoon. Oh, but David's got double Lanoon. He's used that Ditto to evolve into a Lanoon. Definitely a good option. And he's in a great position. Of course, one other thing David should consider here is his Weavile. Remember, David's playing a Weavile that for 1 energy does 50 damage times the amount of Pokemon your opponent has in play with an ability. Right now, that's free for Joe. Stack Attacker, Diancie, Cinccino. If he evolves into it's already 150. So that Weavile is going to be able to put in work. But let's be perfectly clear. I am talking about, hey, in the future, in a few turns' time, this is going to be fun. Obviously, David's play at the moment is Obstagoon. He wants to get Obstagoon down and just shut Joe out of the game entirely. That's David's goal. Also, if he gets Obstagoon out early and it gets KO'd early, there is a possibility he can recover it and get, free, probably only free, but free Obstagoon rolling. But after that, it's something to bear in mind. Joe has got his Cinccino down, which is rather lovely. So I'm just having a quick look at deck list here. In terms of Pokemon Catcher, could have sworn David played it. I might be looking at the wrong list. And it really is just the Obstagoon. It's quite funny. When I was speaking to both of these players, before the game, Joe was going, I'm never going to beat Obstagoon. I have no out. I've lost. And David was going, oh man, I'm never going to beat Joe. As soon as he attacks, twice with Hitmontop, he knocks out everything in my deck. Both players were very bad. I was just going to tell you, Joe is playing two of them. Oh, and he hits a heads. That was a heads, wasn't it? I could have sworn that was a heads. I thought it was a 6. It was. He gets Lanoon. And this is why he also needed the Hitmonchan. Oh, and he's got Titanizer to switch. That is going to be 100 with the weak. No. Sorry, there is no weakness. We're talking Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield, and this is one thing that really hurts Joe in this matchup. Lanoon is not weak to darkness. It would have been pre-Sword and Shield. It's got 100 HP and a weakness to grass. So had it had a fighting weakness, that would have been a KO perfectly, but it's not. Now, one thing to bear in mind here is Hitmonlee can hit the bench. So what Joe can actually do here is next turn Hitmonlee to do 90. Oh, and he can't Hitmontop because he's got no bench space left. But if he was able to do 90 with Hitmonlee and then use Hitmontop, that actually would KO both the Lanoon, assuming they hadn't evolved, which there's a very good chance that they would have. But it's something to bear in mind. That would be a potential out here. So we do see a Professor Elm's Lecture coming down. David's getting a Spiritomb, an Eevee, and a Minccino. Choosing to go for the 60 HP Minccino so that he can take advantage of Professor Elm's Lecture. Lets him search 3 Pokemon with 60 HP or less. As someone who's been playing for like a decade really seriously, and being used to Darkness Pokemon being weak to fighting, I'll be honest with you, it's kind of annoying that they've changed the weakness. Now, one thing we need to mention about Lanoon here, it's got a hit and run attack. 1 energy, 20 damage, switch to the bench. 20 damage, switch to the bench. Oh. Joe's only playing 2 Pokemon Catcher, which means he is not going to be able to quadruple Gust to take out both those Lanoon, and David is going to be able to attack and switch to the bench, whacking up a Spiritomb, or Minccino I suppose, and making Joe's life significantly more difficult. Joe has still got the Hitmonlee, which can hit the bench. Annoyingly, Galarian Lanoon is unfortunately a 100 HP Pokemon, and Hitmonlee hits 90. And that's a big deal. That 10 HP is a big deal. When I'm doing my initial analysis of cards on this video, sometimes people tell me I'm spending a bit too long looking at the stats. And maybe sometimes they've got a point. But what I often say to people is exactly what we see here. Sometimes that extra 10 HP above what we might expect, or that slightly unusual weakness or whatever. I mean, we have seen those Lanoon, they could be 90 HP and at threat from Hitmonchan, but they're not. They could have a weakness to darkness like they would have done one set earlier, but they don't. And both of those facts are making this game far more favourable for David than it would have been. Question is Joe able to get that Hitmonlee rolling? You've got to think if he can get Hitmonlee rolling this turn, he's going to take out that damage bench Lanoon. I mean, that seems moderately sensible. It's certainly something I would be looking to do. He doesn't, incidentally, right, Joe doesn't win the game because he gets rid of Obstagoon. David's still got his Weavile, his Spiritomb. And every turn that Joe ignores the Spiritomb is 1 more damage counter, and they do 10 damage base plus 30 more for each damage on them, while having an ability that puts the damage on it, i.e. builds up the damage on itself. So David's still got the Spiritomb, he's still got the Umbreon, 120 if you had a Pokemon KO'd last turn. He's still got a lot of good options outside of the Obstagoon. It's just that the Obstagoon can legitimately shut down Joe's entire deck. Now, Joe does get the first KO here. He uses Hitmonchan to go and take down a Spiritomb. And David must be confident he's either got the Obstagoon or he's going to get the Obstagoon. Now, there's Professor Elm's Lecture. One thing he's going to be looking to do here is, at some point, he's going to want to use an ordinary rod to recover a Lanoon and an Obstagoon, because he used a Ditto initially, so he has still got a Galarian Zigzagoon in his deck, or prizes, I suppose. So to try and get that third Obstagoon if it comes down to it. But one of the things Obstagoon can do here is, rather than just winning the game, just slow Joe down enough that he can win with other Pokemon. Though, like I've said, please don't sleep on the fact that Joe can hit the bench with Hitmonlee and spread with Hitmontop. Mew is a good answer to Joe's deck. We saw that in the game against Josh. But remember, in this tournament, we are limiting players to only their assigned typing and colourless, though they must have their deck more of their own type than colourless. That means that Mew is only available to Josh. Now, I do like that we're trading hit and run attackers here. Joe hit for 30 and switched to the bench, and David hit for 20 and switched to the bench. And we're right back where we were, with just a little bit of extra damage on the field, and to be fair, Joe having taken a prize. Joe taking a prize is pretty cool. But I do find this kind of interesting. Fun times, ladies and gentlemen. Fun times. So, Joe does have his Cinccino up. Cinccino will actually be 10 damage short of a KO here. He will actually put Spiritomb up to maximum KO range. 5 damage on Spiritomb is perfect if you're looking to be attacking. So, I'm not sure how much Joe would want to attack with Cinccino here. What would be far better is having, say, an Air Balloon or something along those lines, and retreating and then attacking with Hitmonlee, probably, because he did still Hitmonchan last turn. He did Hitmonchan last turn, and that Lanoon has still not evolved. So if he's got an Air Balloon energy, he would be able to retreat to retreat to Hitmonlee and then take out Lanoon. I'm not sure he's got... Okay, there's the Air Balloon. Does he have the energy? Does he want to? Yes, he's got the energy already then. So it's an awkward situation here. It's a really awkward situation. Does he take the guaranteed KO or does he get greedy? Because he can KO one Lanoon now. Or he can put the undamaged Lanoon up to 90, and if David doesn't evolve, he can Hitmontop. Oh, no, but he doesn't have a Hitmontop on the board. And I think Joe's just explaining here, look, I attacked with Hitmonchan last turn, so I can Hitmonlee now. No, he's got to take out the damaged one. If he had either a Bent Space or a Hitmontop ready, there is an argument to go greedy and try and get both the Lanoon in one go next turn. Kind of locking Obstagoon out for the game, ironically. But Joe doesn't have a Bent Space, and I don't know. Yeah, I was saying, you have to take out the damaged Lanoon. Plus, how bad do you feel if you damage the bench Lanoon that doesn't have damage on, and then David just goes double Obstagoon, and you don't get to attack with Hitmontop? That would be very bad. So, we do see an ordinary rod coming down here. Gets himself a Lanoon and a Darkness Energy. Now, he hasn't shuffled up because he's got a quick ball there. Drops the Alola Meowth. I love Alola Meowth. We did see that coming out a little bit in his round 2 game against Jack. For 0 energy, only on your first turn and only if you went second, you do 70 damage for 0 energy. It's so good. It's stupid, right? It's completely dumb. It is one of the dumbest cards we've got in the game, but it's absolutely hands down one of my favorite cards. I love it. It's completely ridiculous, but I absolutely love it. Okay. Now, we do see Cynthia coming down for David, getting him a new hand of 6 cards, which is nice. That's going to help him out. To be fair, Joe is up 2 prizes to 0 here. We've talked a lot so far in this game about David having the answer in Obstagoon, but as it stands at the moment, Joe has taken out 2 Pokemon. Now, it is worth noting that what David's doing here absolutely beautifully, David has gotten a Zigzagoon on the bench, having just shuffled an Obstagoon back into, a Lanoon back into his deck. So he is still trying to make sure he's got the option for double Obstagoon. And would you believe it, with Joe having 4 prizes remaining, that has opened up the option of B-String, and David has just used a B-String to get 2 energy on a Guzzlord. Now, if David gets 4 energy on a Guzzlord, he does 120 and takes an extra prize, and it is very much worth pointing out that Joe's Pokemon, most of them, have less than 120 HP. Now, Guzzlord is actually weak to fighting, which is a little sad, but it's got 150 HP naturally. It's a fairly big boy. So this is what I was talking about earlier. David's is a very tricksy deck. I was testing for the Professor Cup, which was a similar kind of format. You couldn't play Prism Stars and you were not locked into one typing. But other than that, it was a very similar format to the one we're playing here. And I was using a variation on David's deck of a few more Ultra Beasts. And oh my goodness, it's a very fun deck to play. Now, we do see Joe's got his Hitmonchan active there. And as it stands, he will be taking a KO on Spiritomb. So actually, Joe, is he going to go? Yeah, Joe's actually gone up 3 prizes to 0 here. And he's still got his Hitmonchan. And this is one thing that Joe absolutely has the option of doing in this game. Ignoring Obstagoon. Just completely ignoring Obstagoon. Just hitting the bench instead because, you know what, Obstagoon, I don't care. I'm not playing. Not the game you want me to play anyway. And and obviously you can take it out before it gets going. Because Obstagoon's Obstruct, if we go to the wording, reads, during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from basic Pokemon. But it doesn't stop anything else. It doesn't stop Hitmonchan switching to the bench, and it doesn't stop Hitmonchan's attack, so you are then able to attack with Hitmonlee. Oh, we see Rosa coming out here, and David's gone for a Lanoon, a Galarian Lanoon, an Evolution Incense, which he is using to go and get himself a Weavile, which he's not able to evolve into yet, because there's no Sneasel on them. Oh, no, what am I doing? It's an Obstagoon. Clearly it's an Obstagoon. And a Darkness Energy. Okay, and he's now off hitting 100 damage with Galarian Obstagoon. Oh, and Joe got a little bit greedy. He didn't need to put the Hitmonlee active, but he wanted it active so he didn't have to potentially have an awkward time getting it active, and that has now come back to bite him a little bit. Of course, the best option for the Hitmonlee would have been the Zigzagoon, which has evolved into a Lanoon, and as we've mentioned, Lanoon has 10 HP extra, which very much puts it out of range. Now, we do see an ordinary rod here from Joe. Gets himself a Hitmonlee back, and an Oranguru and a couple of energy. I mean, Hitmonlee is still a very good option. One of the other things Joe needs to look out for here, I'm fairly sure he hasn't seen David's list. So, does he know about David's B-String? To be fair, David does play 2. You would assume he plays 2. If Joe doesn't get a KO this turn, then he remains on 3 prizes, and B-String remains an option for David. Which means he can get another B-String onto that Guzzlord to get 2 more energy onto that Guzzlord, which will give him the opportunity to start taking 2 prize KOs. And he's only down by 2 prizes. So if he can start taking some 2 prize KOs with some big bulky Pokemon, that is going to make things extremely difficult for Joe to come back from. Not impossible, mind you. I ain't saying Joe's out of this. I'm just saying it's more difficult. So, We do get Hitmonlee coming up. Joe's done an excellent job. He's got the Hitmonlee. He's got the energy. There isn't a great target here. I think he probably has to go for, I don't know, Lanoon? Minccino? Eevee? There's plenty of... I mean, he's got 2 options of Pokemon to take out here, so to keep taking prizes. But I'm not sure if either of them really gets him to victory. Now, the other option is just hit the Lanoon or Guzzlord, ready for a Hitmontop next turn. But once again, because Joe had to go and recover the Hitmonlee, he still doesn't actually have a bench space ready for Hitmontop. So the question is, where's he going? He does choose to go onto the Guzzlord. The maths, of course, works out perfectly here. Hitmontop does 60 to each of your opponent's Pokemon. And Guzzlord's got 150. Minus 90 leaves 6. Oh, look how that worked out, ladies and gentlemen. Look how that worked out. And to be fair, it's a weird one, because David actually needs to get some evolutions rolling. David is playing 60 HP Pokemon for Professor Round's lecture. Okay, there's the Umbreon. And there's the Cinccino. I was going to say, next turn, if Joe was able to use Hitmontop and there isn't one on the board, nor is there a bench space, he actually would have won the game. Because he would have KO'd the Guzzlord and the Umbreon and the Cinccino, and that would legitimately have just ended the game there and then. And this is kind of what I'm talking about here. Joe is in a very... He's in an awkward position when it comes to the Obstagoon, but he's a very good player playing a deck. He's also got a bunch of options. Now, Joe's deck is a bit more linear. Don't get me wrong, Joe's deck has tricks. He's got the Stack Attacker with B-String as well, and he's got the option of Hitmonlee and Hitmontop, and knowing when to use them and when to just stick with Hitmonchan is in and of itself a difficult decision at times. But his deck is slightly more predictable sometimes than David's. So David there knew, like we've been saying, well, Joe can just drop the Hitmontop and potentially just wipe and win the game. So David knew that he had to evolve. The one thing that I'm interested in, does Joe know that David plays Weavile? Now, he can't really drop it as a surprise because Ditto has gone. You can see it in the Lost Zone there on David's side. But that would do 200 damage right now. That would take out a Stack Attacker even if David's down to 3 prizes and Stack Attacker gets a boost of HP up to 200. So these are very interesting things to consider. Now, we do see the Hitmonchan here coming into the active. And this is where things get annoying. Now, he does have a Lily's Pokédoll, does Joe. Remember, no damage coming down here. There will be no damage, ladies and gentlemen. However, he does still get to switch to the bench. And now, and I love what Joe's doing here. This is a brilliant play from Joe. He's trying to make David KO the Lily's Pokédoll, which might activate Rosie. You never know. But it also means that Joe can essentially use Hitmonlee without giving David a prize in the meantime. When Lily's Pokédoll goes down, that will create a bench space for Hitmonlee. And yeah, I love this. Because Joe can actually take that, and Joe needs to go for the Guzzlord. There have been other games where other turns in this game, I should say, where we've gone, well, Joe could go for that. No. Joe needs the Guzzlord. That Guzzlord is not fun. Because that Guzzlord is how David goes from, tee-hee-hee, I'm locking you out of the game, to ha-ha-ha, multiple prizes. Joe needs 3 KOs to win the game. With Guzzlord, David needs 2. And that Guzzlord is 1 energy away from attacking. So make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen. We are now at the stage where that Guzzlord needs to go. Joe's got the Cinccino in the active. He's got the Air Balloon. So all he needs is Hitmonlee and an energy. And that'll do it. Outside of that, even though Joe took a fairly sizable lead this game, I'm going to start feeling less positive about Joe's chances of winning. I believe in the boy. I believe he can do it. But it's going to get a lot more difficult. It's going to get a lot more difficult. So, a lot of shuffling going on. A lot of shuffling going on. Now, we do get an energy on Stack Attacker here. So, Hitmonlee's out. Oh, no. Is that his B string? That is a B string. The glare kind of hit it from me. So, we do actually get an energy through B string. So, Hitmonlee is not out. He's still potentially got the energy for Hitmonlee. That's awesome. It's all very potential and all of this because actually, yeah. This is what I love about all of this stuff here. Because it's just... We're not seeing these really hyper straightforward decks. Now, we do see it's a Tails. So Joe goes 1-for-1 this game on Pokemon Catcher. That would have been awesome. He would actually have been able to get the KO on Guzzlord just using a Hitmonchan and then potentially saving Hitmonlee for next turn, which would have been a great thing. Unfortunately, not an option. So he does get the Hitmonchan, and Hitmonchan goes to the bench and puts another Hitmonchan active. That is not the turn Joe wanted. Not at all. He was looking to either get a KO... Well, he really wanted a KO on that Guzzlord, whether it was through Hitmonlee or whether it was through Pokemon Catcher. That was what was going to do it. Without that, I'm starting to worry a little bit here. Just a little bit, mind you. So, we see the Hitmonlee. Alright, so we've got the Quick Ball. We've got ourselves a Hitmonlee. This is a good thing. This is making things a little bit easier. Does he have the energy? Again, the one thing that Joe has been doing absolutely brilliantly this game is when the Obstagoon's been there and Joe's been essentially locked out of attacking, what he's been doing is making sure that he's leaving himself open for the option of Hitmonlee. Attacking with Hitmonchan so that Hitmonlee is an option for the future. And now it is an option, and now it's out, and this is a good thing. Oh, and I mean, it had to be the Guzzlord, didn't it? Had to be the Guzzlord. But this is all right. Joe's now down to 2 prizes remaining. Joe's got 2 prizes left. David's got 3 prizes left. David has still got the Obstagoon. In fact, he's got double Obstagoon. One of the things about Obstagoon, even in this kind of format, it's not a gigantic offensive threat. It's not one of these which is going to take giant KO after giant KO, not unless your opponent hasn't really got going yet. But we've seen so many turns where Joe has basically attacked with Hitmonchan just to activate his Hitmonlee. But now what? David is going to start taking a bunch of prizes very quickly here. You can already see there's damage on the Stack Attacker, there's damage on the Hitmonchan, there's damage on the Chinchino, and they're not exactly gigantic HP Pokemon to begin with. And then... And Joe he doesn't have the Hitmontop. And that's what's really sad here. Turn after turn after turn, he doesn't have Hitmontop. So we do see Buzzwole being discarded. Now he does have a bench space. David's taken a prize. And Joe now has a bench space. And this is it, right? This is how it can start becoming really cool. Because we've opened up a bench space here. Now, was it last turn Joe used Hitmonlee? So even then, he needs 2 Hitmontops to win the game. And he's used both his Pokemon Catcher. I'm sitting here and I'm trying to work through the turns. And I'm trying to go, right, how does Joe actually take the win here? He's using Oranguru. I don't mind this play at all. Oranguru doesn't get one hit KO'd by Obstagoon. And if Joe's not able to get a good attack going anyway, this just... It gives a really nice opportunity for Joe to be able to kind of recover some cards. But then, by the same token, is it really getting him that much closer to winning the game? Because now, Hitmonlee and Hitmontop are out. Next turn, he's basically got Stack Attacker and Hitmonchan. But remember that David's active is blocking basics, and Joe's only got basics other than Chinchino, but Chinchino is not doing enough damage to really make it work. And I'm still sitting here going, maybe? And actually, I'm not entirely sure. Now, we do see the 100 damage from Obstagoon. It is worth remembering that there is a Vitality Band there, which is why he's doing the extra damage. That's quite important. But it's going to be so difficult to finish this off for Joe. And David's taken a very slow end to the game. I mean, for several turns now, David has just been kind of like, attack with Obstagoon, attack with Obstagoon, attack with Obstagoon. Because that's all he needs to do. It's not like he's got all of these million things he desperately needs to do in order to go and start winning. He's just like, yeah, I'm cool. I'm all right with this. And that's so difficult for Joe. Well, less difficult for David. Oh, poor David. No, poor Joe. David's doing well. And what you see here, what Joe is showing you is basically a really nice example of how to try and take down a matchup when it is really blatantly, obviously not in your favour. Drops a Cynthia, is going to get him a new hand of 6 cards, which is nice. But it's just... it's going to be so difficult. So difficult. He's used his Pokemon Catcher, and he's got bench-hitting options. This is a problem with the Hitmonchan deck, and I believe it's the reason why it's had a little bit of success in Expanded, to be fair. But in Expanded, we've got really good blockers like Wobbuffet, who you chuck active to block abilities. Oh, no, he has got a Pokemon Catcher, of course! And it's a heads! Because he used Oranguru earlier. Here's me saying how Joe's got no Pokemon Catcher. That's why he used Oranguru. Okay, now I'm back in on Joe's chances. To be fair, I still think David is massively favoured here. Oh, that's perfect. That Vitality Band puts Hitmonchan up to 60 damage. Doubled for weakness is 120, which will KO the Umbreon. And I imagine that Joe has got another Pokemon Catcher as well going into his deck. So he should maybe have one remaining, and that stack attacker with a beast type and an energy can do it. Is Joe actually going to pull out game one? A mid-game Oranguru, turning off any really good attacks for several turns just to get those Pokemon Catcher back. And maybe this is Joe's route to victory. Maybe this is how he does it. Maybe Joe just has to go, right, the only way I win here is maybe I can go Hitmonlee, Hitmontop, C, but when that plan fails, I have to just go aggressively into Pokemon Catcher with Oranguru and cross my fingers. One thing I very much enjoy here is that Joe's put his Diancie active. There's an air balloon on there, which means Joe's got free retreat, and he really doesn't care if he gets KO'd. That's a good thing. All right. Maybe Joe can do this. And this is, to be clear, right, this is a bad matchup for Joe. Let's be super clear. Diancie can also take a hit from Obstagoon. It's got 120 HP, so it will survive that hit. Joe is also very close to decking out, incidentally. Oh, wait, no. Okay, so there's one Pokemon Catcher in the discard pile. We've seen him play 3, so we know it's not the final prize in his deck. So we know Joe's got access to another Pokemon Catcher. We know he does. Now, Cinccino's also got 90 HP. So there is a possibility that Joe could win the game by using Hitmonlee to take out that bench Cinccino. Incidentally, that Cinccino is basically what's got to go down, because there's Obstagoon and Lily's Pokédoll does not give up a prize. I think that's how he wins here. If he doesn't have the catcher or he doesn't flip heads, I think all we're going to see here is Joe basically retreating, attacking with Hitmonchan, and then just feeding David a prize. Bearing in mind, one prize will not win David the game. Oh, Lysander Labs hits the field. That's a pretty big one. Remember, Lysander Labs is a stadium that turns off Pokemon tools, which turns off Joe's air balloon that we see on that Diancie now. Oh no. How can Joe get out the active? Has he got his own stadium to play? I mean, he plays martial arts dojo, but does he have a martial art? I was not looking for that. When we looked at the discard pile a moment ago, I was not looking for it. So we do see him playing a Marnie here. Both players shuffle a hand and put it on bottom of their deck. Joe draws 5 cards, David draws 4. Is he able to do it? Can he pull it out here? He's not got much time. Oh, and we do see the Martial Arts Dojo and the Pokemon Catcher heads. And Joe actually takes game 1. Oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen. That'll happen very quickly at the end. Joe hits heads on his final catcher. He's got his Martial Arts Dojo. He was waiting for Lysander Labs, and he actually takes game 1 in what is one of the most impressive victories you're going to see, because believe me when I say, this is not a matchup in Joe's favor at all. So moving ahead into game 2 here, we have just skipped a little bit of between games, and if there is a game 3, we shall do it again, ladies and gentlemen. We shall do it again. Oh, David starts with the Zigzagoon. Not a good starter, of course, because it's got a great coming into play ability. You play it and you drop a damage counter on one of your opponent's Pokemon. But double Quick Ball to start? I'll take that. Now, he does drop Cinccino and Professor Elm's Lecture, both very good cards. And actually, to be fair, it depends what he's searching for here. Because Professor Elm's Lecture gets you 3 basic Pokemon to start off. But he might have another supporter he wants to play as well. If he can, say, do 2 Quick Ball and a Cynthia, that's awesome. If he's not got something so good, then that Elm's Lecture would have been really, really handy. But as it goes, he's got himself a Ditto Prism Star and he's got himself a Zigzagoon, so that's awesome. Now, if you're David, what do you think here? Because on the one hand, you know you've got Obstagoon. On the other hand, you lost game 1 even with Obstagoon. But on the other hand, we do see Adventure Bag coming down from Joe, get a couple of tools early, an Air Balloon and Vitality Band. You imagine it's Air Balloon for... Oh, no, a Beastite. So it looks like he's going to have an... It's either something to bin with a Quick Ball or something similar, or he's actually maybe thinking in an Ultra Beast plan here. Joe had to go through a lot of hoops to win that first game. That first game was not some kind of like casual la 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 win for Joe. No. That first game was a very, very difficult game for Joe to win. He did it. Good work, Joe. Proud of you, boy. But I don't know why I keep calling Joe boy, but I'm a Cornishman, right? And this is maybe a cultural thing. A Cornishman, we will often say boy. It's just a kind of thing. We call people boy as kind of a matter of course. It's not an insult and it's not intended to show any disrespect whatsoever. So, just in case anyone was about to get offended, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, we're all friends here. So we do see that Beastite actually was quick ball fodder to grab a Minccino. Not upset about that at all. Or is he grabbing Minccino or is he grabbing something else? Oh, yes, and we see another quick ball getting rid of a Hitmonchan. Now, we saw Joe kind of deliberating here. Because, obviously, the last thing he wants to do is... He doesn't want to get rid of his second Hitmonchan, right? He's only allowed to play 2 Hitmonchan by the rules of the tournament. So by discarding one with a quick ball and having one out, he's basically saying, look, until I can play a recovery card, that's it. Now, he's actually going for a second Minccino. And what's interesting, in the first game, Joe didn't really attack with Cinccino. Not really at all. But that wasn't what Cinccino did. In game 1, Joe basically went, look, this is an awkward game for me. The only way I'm going to win this game is by making sure I've got everything I need. And he did, and it worked. So I think he's going for that again. He needs a draw power. This is a very difficult game for Joe to win. He's going to need draw power so that he's basically got everything he needs when he needs it. Good on him, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen. Good on him. Now, we do see Pokemon communication here. And David's got himself a Lanoon. And remember, Lanoon's got hit and run, so he hits for 20 and switches to the Lily's Pokédoll on the bench. Yeah. Good shout, quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, now Joe... And Joe can take out the Lily's Pokédoll, but he's not taking a prize when he does so. That's a good thing. Good thing for David. Less of a good thing for Joe. So, we do see a Hitmonlee going back with Pokemon communication. Presumably, that's going to go and get him his second Cinccino, and it does. So now Joe's got double Cinccino rolling. This is a good thing. For Joe, not so much for David. So he does get the double Cinccino, and this basically means that every turn, there goes a Stack Attacker. Joe gets to draw a card, discard a card, draw 2, discard a card, draw 2. He is, without playing a supporter, seeing the top 5 cards of his deck every turn. It's not going to guarantee he gets everything he needs, but what it is going to do is drastically increase the chances of Joe actually drawing what he needs. Now, here goes a Cynthia. Gets himself another 6 cards. Lily's Pokédoll will be quite nice now. He let himself buy a turn. So we do get the energy on Hitmonchan, but he needs something to chuck active. Hence my suggestion of Lily's Pokédoll being a good option. But does he have it? So no. So he just hits. Now remember, Hitmonchan is you may switch to the bench, not you must switch to the bench. So there is every possibility that, you just go, you know what, mate? I'm all right. I'm cool with this. So. Oh, we see a Marnie coming down from David here. That is going to force both players to take a new hand of cards. Again, Marnie is not it's not an even trade, shall we say. The person playing Marnie gets 5 cards. The other player only gets 4. Oh, and David's got an Evolution Incense, which means David's got his Obstagoon. That is a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. A very good thing indeed. And there comes a Pokemon Communication, chucking back a Weavile. So if Joe didn't know about the Weavile, he definitely does now. And that's the thing I love about David's chances. And I know he's down 1-0. He does get Lanoon, incidentally, to evolve the Zigzagoon. You probably could have seen that coming. And here's the thing I really love about this. It's the fact that he's got the option of going, okay, fine, Obstagoon's not working, but I can hit 120 for a single energy with Spiritomb, up to 160 for a single energy, Umbreon, up to 160 for a single energy with Spiritomb. I can start chucking out these other attackers. Weavile for, again, 1 energy, 50 damage times the amount of abilities on my opponent's side of the board, and all of a sudden, he's in a good position regardless. Now, the other thing we need to bear in mind here, David has just KO'd the Hitmonchan. And remember, Joe had to discard a Hitmonchan early game. So as it stands, and I don't believe he's played a recovery card. I'm chatting a lot. I occasionally miss some stuff. But I believe that means that Joe essentially doesn't currently have access to a Hitmonchan. That's a very bad thing. Remember, even last game, even through all of Joe's, I want to say faffing around, but I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as a kind of, that is literally what it took to keep himself in and eventually win the game. It was all built around Hitmonchan. Those Hitmonchan that he would do turn after turn after turn, just so he had the option of Hitmonlee next turn, sometimes that he'd use, sometimes that he wouldn't. Now, we do see Rosa coming down with a Hitmontop, a Balloon, and an Energy. What's Joe attacking with here? The thing about Cinccino is, Cinccino can attack Obstagoon, but why? You've got 90 HP and Obstagoon does 90. And Cinccino's hitting for 40 and Obstagoon's got, is it 160, 170? Let me double check that for you. I know you can see it on the screen. I had those in post, right? It is 160. So, now the good news is Joe did Hitmonchan last turn, I believe. So, or did he hit I think he hit Hitmonchan last turn. Wait. Okay, so the free, I believe they forgot to put free damage down from the from the Obstagoon's evolution, so you just saw that coming down on the Cinccino there. So now we do see the Hitmonlee coming active. You imagine it's going to be the... Oh, this is such an awkward decision. He does go Lanoon. Now, the reason he goes Lanoon is this. He is basically betting... Oh, David's drawing 4 with Erika's Hospitality here. He is betting on David not hitting Obstagoon. Because if David hits Obstagoon, this is... Oh, he's hit Obstagoon. That is backfiring. Because we just said Obstagoon's got 160. So when Hitmontop attacks for 60 here, it goes up to 150. And the Obstagoon will actually survive. And yeah, I know Joe can then KO it with Cinccino. That is not the plan here. And it looks like Game 2 is not going to be like Game 1. David takes out the Hitmonlee. Joe currently has no access to Hitmonchan. He has got Hitmontop here, but he's not taking any prizes off Hitmontop. He is 10 damage away from getting the Zigzagoon. He is 10 damage away from getting the benched Obstagoon. Now he does pop a Martial Arts Dojo down. He gets a Magnolia. The problem is, Joe doesn't have anything that just hits the bench. He's got Hitmontop, which hits the bench. But he doesn't have anything that just hits the bench. And that, if you're going to spread 10 damage around, I know it would be another attack, but it would at least start taking those prizes. Now, we do see another couple draws from Joe here using his Cinccino, which is lovely. I'm not worried about this turn. This turn, there's an easy roadmap. Oh, drops 2 energy in quick succession with Cinccino. Oh, there we go. So the Ordinary Rod gets both the energy back. And guess what he's going to go for here? Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee. Doesn't need both the Hitmonchan right now. He needs access to a Hitmonchan. He's lost his Hitmonlee as well, so that was a sensible way around doing things. And now maybe we can make this work. Because now what Joe can do is just start softening up everybody. He uses Hitmontop this turn, and then next turn he Hitmonchans into Lily's Pokédoll, doesn't give up a prize. Then he Hitmonlees, then he Hitmontops again. So he's basically spreading 60. Then he does nothing but doesn't give up a prize after. Then he does 90, then he spreads 60. Maybe this is how Joe can start clawing this back. I still think it's going to be extremely difficult for him to do so. Because remember, if David gets ahead on prizes like he is now, David can abandon the Obstagoon plan. Of course, there is another thing going on here that we need to make sure we don't forget about. David's playing a lot of 60 HP Pokemon. And unlike in the previous game, Joe is constantly threatening Hitmontop. Now, you see the timing here? This is not a coincidence. Now that Joe has used Hitmontop, it is a minimum 3 turns until he can attack with it again. So now David can go and get his free 60 HP basics, safe in the knowledge that they're not going to be KO'd for a minimum 3 turns. Although those Spiritombs don't evolve, so they will be KO'd then. But that Eevee will almost certainly have evolved by that point. Oh, having said that... And again, we're 3 turns away, but theoretically, Joe basically just... Oh, there's a Guzzlord going down. Oh, and David's actually choosing not to play any of those evolving Pokemon, because he's just thinning out his deck so he draws into what he wants more easily. He is not giving Joe the option of using Hitmontop. He knows it didn't win Joe last game, but he also knows that it could have. Joe didn't get the big 4 prize turn last game, but when David's up 3 prizes to 0, and he's got the double Obstagoon out, and he's starting to build up Guzzlord, about the only thing David loses to is Joe going for a big 4 prize turn, and David's going, no. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not letting you have the big 4 prize turn. I'm not falling for it, and you can't make me. Now, we do see a Cynthia and Caitlin coming down here. Joe discards a card from his hand and draws 3 cards while getting a supporter back, gets Marnie back, and draws 3 cards. Almost forgot to get a supporter back. He's just using it as a discard a card, draw 3. When you need cards, ladies and gentlemen, you need cards. Now, he does hit the Hitmonchan there, which is awesome. And that's what Joe needs at this stage. He needs Hitmonchan. Like I've said, this is going to be a nothing turn. Not unless he can hit a Pokemon Catcher Heads. At which point he can hit Guzzlord for 60 and then he's rolling. And that would actually be awesome. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen. So this is a nothing turn for Joe. He attacks with Hitmonchan. Literally nothing happens. He puts Lily's Pokédoll active. David will attack and gain nothing from having attacked. But here's the thing. Joe now opens up Hitmonlee to hit Guzzlord. And then Hitmontop will KO the Bent Zigzagoon. And the Obstagoon. And the Guzzlord. Does David care? Here's the thing. Joe is attacking the bench. So one option for David, fine, I won't have any bench. If David just keeps attacking with Obstagoon, the only option Joe has got to hit the active is Cinccino. So one of the things David can do here is just give up the bench. Let Joe take free prizes off the bench, not care, and then just sit there hitting for 90 until Joe scoops. Joe has the option of taking out the bench to win the game. But if you have no bench, then the only thing Joe can do is take out the active. And when that active is Obstagoon, the only thing Joe can do is cry. And like I say, I don't think Cinccino is a genuine viable option here, because Cinccino hits for 40 and then gets KO'd. Oh. And if you're about to deck out or get benched, if your opponent's actually about to take out the Obstagoon, you start playing down your basics knowing your opponent is a minimum 3 turns away from hitting a Hitmontop attack. It's a rough matchup for Joe. Like I say, both players got in touch with me prior to this game and were like, Ross, I don't know how I'm going to win this game. But I look back now and I'm just like, I would much rather be playing David's deck than Joe's here. And Joe's deck's done him well. It's won him 2 games against 2 very good players. Alessandro Cremascoli is a very, very good player. And Josh Marking is a very good player. I'm genuinely delighted with the level of playing and deck building we've seen in this tournament. I think Stefan and I put together a really good, strong roster of lovely people to play with this alternate rules format. Maybe we'll do it again in the future. Who knows? All I'm saying is that there's going to be a wrap-up video where the winner of this game opens up their prizes from Dragon Shield, because Dragon Shield is sending them and I already know who wins, unfortunately. We had to already send the box out in advance. No spoilers. But we're going to have that player open up the winning, and we're going to interview them, and then there's going to be a bit of a wrap-up video. And all I'm saying is, maybe you watch the wrap-up video? Just putting that out there. Now, Joe actually pulls off the Hitmontop. While we were chatting, Joe did exactly what we said he could do, and took a treble prize turn, and I don't think David cares. Because if I'm David here, I'm just like, yeah, don't care. I'm just I am tempted, if I'm David, to just play with no bench. I'm trying to figure out what Joe can do, and you never know if Joe's got a surprise up his sleeve, unless you've seen his deck list. And to be fair, I have seen his deck list in advance, so it's not terribly fair for me to judge here. But if Joe can only try and win by hitting the bench, then David can be like, yeah, I'm cool. Now, we do see a Cynthia coming down here, but it should be that Joe can basically win this game in like 3 attacks. Probably wouldn't mind having a Vitality Band. But he's already getting a 1-hit KO on Cinccino, and Hitmonchan, and Hitmontop. He needs Vitality Band to get a 1-hit KO on Hitmonlee. And then that's game. Remember, David's only got to take 3 prizes to win. And we are... I'm really just trying to look at Joe's board, and I'm thinking, right, if David cannot go solo Obstagoon early game. That's not a possibility. Because if Joe takes like 1 prize off a Zigzagoon or a Lanoon, David loses. That's a bad idea. But at this stage of the game, where he's already got the Obstagoon rolling, I'm trying to figure out exactly what the downside to David is. And if you know, let me know in the comment section. But I'm trying to figure out exactly what the downside is of David just going solo Obstagoon. And I'm not sure that there is. Now, David's got 2 prizes left. As soon as David KOs 2 Pokemon, which is basically 2 turns, he will win the game. And the question really is whether Joe has got anything in the meantime to try and stop him. Now, he does bring up Clefairy, though. That will at least buy Joe a turn. But when you're playing games like this, you do have to ask yourself the question, buying a turn for what? Like, if you're going to use stalling tactics to buy yourself a turn, to stall out your opponent a little bit, there's got to be a reason for doing so. Now, here's one reason. It's the final. The more turns you play, the more information you've got. And even if Joe is destined to lose game 2, hey, look. Hey, look, it's game 3. Game 3's got your back. Now, he is building up an Oranguru here. Yay, Oranguru. But, I mean, Oranguru, it's great for the recovery, right? I don't think it's a terribly viable attacker. I don't look at Oranguru and go, he's going to win the game! I look at Oranguru and go, oh, wait a second. He can, for free energy, he can do 60 and confusion. And incidentally, that might be the downside. Joe might have actually found the downside to solo Obstagoon. Confusion. And I talk a lot in games, I talk a lot in my videos about knowing every card in your deck. And this is a prime example of that. Now, we did actually just see Darkrai coming down with an extra 2 energy. Because Obstagoon, Oranguru, too many O's, you don't attack with Oranguru. 60 plus confusion for free energy is a bad attack. Until you end up in a game with a player going solo Obstagoon, which David was clearly doing. At which point, and remember, I told you this earlier, Obstagoon blocks damage. Obstagoon only blocks damage. Doesn't block other effects. Which means that David is potentially vulnerable to confusion. And here's the thing. It is not multiple confusion flips that lose you the game. It is one Tails confusion flip that loses you the game when you're going solo Obstagoon. Because Obstagoon, 90 damage during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks and basic Pokemon. But if you flip Tails on confusion, you don't get the attack off. And if you don't get the attack off, you don't get immunity next turn. And if you don't get immunity, you see where I'm going with this, you lose. Oh. That's not good. Yeah. Look out for that one, would you? Now, David's still got 2 prizes left to take, and this is it now. Oh, I missed it. I completely missed it, and to be honest, would David have gone solo Obstagoon if he was really worried about Oranguru? I don't know. But that was about the best we had. Now, you'll notice as soon as Joe started putting energy on Oranguru, David started putting extra energy on Obstagoon. Why? It was a reaction. David knew... Oh. And then we just saw Darkrai come up and take a KO, and that was that, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. Joe held on for as long as he could, but unfortunately... nothing doing, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing doing. But the extra energy on that Oranguru on the Obstagoon was huge. It meant if Joe did confusion like he was going to, David could retreat and still be 1 turn away from attacking, which is exactly what happened. And so here we are, ladies and gentlemen. We got 1 game remaining. This is going to decide who is your Dragon Gym Challenge champion. And I love this. I love that we've got 2 phenomenal players playing really fun decks at 1 game each in the final. That makes me extremely happy. Although this game, Joe's got a very good starter in Hitmonchan, and David's actually got a really bad starter in Sneasel. Now, Sneasel is pre-Sword and Shield. Joe here we see playing an adventure bag. And that means it's weak to darkness. And this particular Sneasel is the one from Ultra Prism. Now, to be fair, it has 70 HP, not 60. But Joe can play Vitality Band or Martial Arts Dojo or Diancie Prism Star and get a very early KO. And we saw from game 1 that Joe won. Every KO counts. David has got a fairly defined game plan here of block with Obstagoon, adjust as necessary. Joe, on the other hand, he is oh, this looks very familiar. Adventure Bag for Air Balloon and Beastite. Will he bin the Beastite with a Quick Ball? Let's see, shall we? But Joe's deck really needs to take every individual prize he can. He needs to make sure that he is taking every tiny little prize imaginable, because he needs to be picking away wherever he can. And the more prizes he can take before Obstagoon hits the field, the better. Now, he does get a Hitmontop down. He does get a Minccino down with an Air Balloon. Now, he doesn't attach an energy. Even if he had one, he was never going to. We see a Pokemon communication here from David, getting rid of an Eevee, presumably for a Ditto or a Zigzagoon. And the reason is Sneasel for a single energy, only on your first turn of the game, only if you go second, very much like the Meowth that David also plays. You may discard an energy for one of your opponent's Pokemon. So if Joe had put an energy, Sneasel would have just gotten rid of it. Or could have done. Of course, we've also seen that David is keen to get Obstagoon up ASAP, so he is tending to put the energy on Zigzagoon early, as we see here, with Vitality Band as well. And we see a Marnie being dropped. Now, one thing I find very interesting, when I put up the first couple games, I got a bunch of feedback from people about the format, which is good. I asked a bunch of people, I put out there, can you please give me some, give me some feedback here as to the format and what you think. Now, what was interesting here is that a couple of people actually did say, you know what would be good, Wassy? You know what would be fun? What we should do is we should make stage 2s easier. So maybe you're allowed to play 3 of the evolving Pokemon, or you can play 3 rare candy or something like that. What I find extremely interesting here, David is successfully playing a stage 2 without even playing rare candy. We saw Jack successfully playing stage 2 and really pushing David right to the end without playing a rare candy. We saw Sierra playing stage 2 Metagross. We saw Toby playing stage 2 Rillaboom. And they were getting those Pokemon into play. This format, because we're taking away those giant basic smashy Pokemon, it gives you a couple more turns to set up. And even though, and we should say David has used Pokemon communication here to get double Zigzagoon, even though we are making players limited to 2 of each card, because of the slightly slower setup pace of these games, because they generally take a couple more turns before giant KOs are being taken, we actually see that players are not only able to play stage 2s, but they are able to reliably play them and get them into play. We've seen in this game so far, in this matchup, both games, David has gotten his Obstagoon rolling. And yes, I know that he lost game 1, but he didn't lose game 1 for lack of Obstagoon. He lost game 1 because Joe was able to pull out a ridiculous, improbable victory. Not the case here, ladies and gentlemen. So, and we see Tate and Liza from Joe getting himself a new hand of 5 cards. I do find it extremely interesting how well Stage 2s are doing in this format when we potentially were worried that they would not be viable. Interesting. So we do see a Quick Ball coming down from Joe here. He needs a basic Pokemon. Oh, it's Diancie Prism Star. Not terribly surprising. He is, as I said, 10 damage shy of actually getting a KO as it stands at the moment on that Sneasel. So by grabbing a Diancie Prism Star, he then is able to, well, actually more than get a KO on Sneasel. And that will put Joe up 1 prize to 0. Like I've said, one of the things that Joe needs to make sure is he is really packing as many prizes as he can into his time. Now, we do see Lanoon coming down here from David. Galarian Lanoon, in fact. Remember, it's a hit-and-run Pokemon, but he needs something to run and hide behind. Like a Lily's Pokédoll, for instance. Now, we do see Professor Magnolia, or as it's actually called, Professor's Research Magnolia. It's going to get David a new hand of 7 cards. And down comes Lanoon. And down comes Lily's Pokédoll. And that's good. He got the Pokédoll to switch into, which we were saying he needed. And he got himself double Lanoon all the way across the sky. This is a very, very strong start from David here. Remember, all David's really doing here is trying to go Obstagoon. But you can see, and I might... One of the problems is, sometimes it's hard to see what is a reaction to what we've seen before, and what is actually made necessary by what you draw. But could we see David here going just double Obstagoon as a reaction to the previous game? In the previous game, we saw Joe having a Hail Mary of trying to confuse with Obstagoon. So maybe here, and actually Joe did just get the Hitmonlee to hit 90 onto that Lanoon, but David has now got the incense to grab himself an Obstagoon. Could David just be going double Obstagoon here to try and see off that confusion plan? So that if Joe does get the confusion with Obstagoon, David can just go, fine, and retreat manually into a waiting Obstagoon that is ready to just attack and start blocking basics. That might be something David is looking to do. Or it might just be this is the way the cards fell. Certainly, the longer we've gone through this game, the more Obstagoon-centric David has been. Oh, and he's got double Obstagoon right there. Joe cannot be happy to see that. Although remember, Joe can Hitmontop next turn, and it will do 60 to the benched Obstagoon, whichever one that one happens to be. So we do see Lily's Pokédoll going on the bottom of David's deck. One of the things that's cool about Pokédoll, as opposed to, say, the old Robo-Sub, if you don't want it in the active anymore, what you actually have the opportunity to do is shuffle it up. Sorry, put it on the bottom of your deck and then shuffle it up with something like Cynthia to find it later. That's really cool. Yeah, big fan of this, ladies and gentlemen. Big fan. Love Lily's Pokédoll. So David then does take his second prize. So David, it looks like, has taken 2. Joe has taken 1. Now Hitmontop goes active. It's going to be so hard for Joe. If David carries on like he is, Joe basically has 2 options. Option number 1, try and... Oh, did Joe not have the energy? Oh no, Joe didn't even have the energy to do 60 with Hitmontop. Oh, Joe started to run dry. And Joe can't run dry of energy here. Joe's chances of winning are so slim at this stage. He needs to either be using Hitmonchan, Hitmonlee, Hitmontop and trying to save prizes here and there, or confusing with Obstagoon. What he's actually done is whiffed energy and fed David 2 prizes for nothing. Now, you'll notice in the first 2 games, Joe did get his Cinccino out, double Cinccino all the way across the sky, and that gave him lots of drawing options. Now, he's not got his Cinccino, and he started running dry, and that's not good. David's only got 2 prizes to take to win the entire tournament at this stage. Now, Joe does finally hit a Marnie, but remember, what David needs right now is nothing. Now, maybe extra energy on his Obstagoon so that he can retreat and keep going if he needs to, but that really is it. There is very, very little David actually needs at this stage. This is awkward. I mean, if you're going to pick a time to start whiffing energy. In Game 3 of the final, not the time to do it. Also worth pointing out, I'm not telling you what is in the prize pack. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know what's in the prize pack. But I know I've been given some hints as to what's in the prize pack. It is definite for a free tournament. And bearing in mind, the players have been sent, sleeves and deck boxes and playmats and all just to use during the tournament. Obviously, they don't have to give them back. They're little presents. So they've gone kind of a nice little goodie bag just for taking part. The prize here is... I don't want to spoil anything. The prize here is really cool. So it's a tournament you definitely want to win. Yes, it's a fun little tournament between friends and lovely people, but it's one you actually want to win. And, oh my goodness. Now, Joe has finally got an energy onto his Hitmonchan, but it looks like he's basically having to give up Dancy Prism Star just to get Hitmonchan rolling, bearing in mind David is 2 prizes away from winning the game. I don't like to call it this early, but I look at this and I just think, I don't see how Joe wins this game. David's got 1 prize remaining, he's got double Obstagoon, and this is the worst case scenario for Joe. Game 1 was basically the best case scenario. Game 2, he put up a good fight, but then got taken down by the Obstagoon. Game 3 here, this is the worst case scenario. This is the, what am I supposed to do about that scenario? This is the, my opponent has just got everything they need. They've gone double Obstagoon. There is no real point hitting the bench, but actually hitting the bench is extremely difficult. Oh yeah, and if I attack with Hitmonlee, I give up a prize. If I attack with Hitmontop, I give up a prize. Also, 160 HP on Obstagoon being super relevant, because it means that a Hitmonlee plus Hitmontop hits 150. Oh yeah, that's not actually enough to get a KO. What is Joe supposed to do about this? And whereas Game 1 was a truly phenomenal back and forth lovely game, I honestly don't think we're going to see the same thing from Game 2 here. I think Game 3. I think Game 3 is going to remain a little bit more one-sided. Good news is Joe has bought himself a little bit of time with Lily's Pokédoll. But again, what we see here from David is beautiful. He gets that 3rd energy onto Obstagoon, so that if he needs to retreat, he's in a position to do so. And then still be attacking. Now, he does go and get himself an Eevee. I love this play from David. I think this is a wonderful play. Because essentially, what David's saying at this stage is, dude, I'm up by 4 prizes. Go for it. In 2 turns' time, you can use Hitmontop to KO my Eevee, by which point I'm going to have an Umbreon, just so we're clear. But also, I've now got a bigger attacker. It means if you do take a KO, I can just hit 120 with Umbreon for a single energy. Please remember that actually, I only need 1 prize to win. Now, looks like Joe's going Stack Attacker here. Because David's got 3 or fewer prizes remaining left to take, that means that Stack Attacker's got 200 HP, which basically means it can take 2 hits from Obstagoon without being KO'd. And that's essentially what Joe's trying. And it's also got a giant retreat cost and cannot attack into Obstagoon. So it's not a perfect situation. But essentially, it's just a way of Joe being able to buy time to set up some of these bigger attacks. Problem is, it's by far the best thing when he's able to get in and out the active and get Stack Attacker in and out the active. And that's not where he is at this stage. He's not getting Stack Attacker in and out the active. Now, we do see Pokemon Catcher here, and it is a head again. Okay, and just chooses to bring up the Eevee, take the easy prize. It's really hard to know what the best plan is here. Because on the one hand, he's taking a prize here. On the other hand, he could start potentially trying to whittle down Obstagoon. But then on the other hand, he's down by 4 prizes and Obstagoon's still out of reach. And it's... Oh, it's so difficult at this stage. So difficult. Now, the problem is, it's not just about Joe taking 5 prizes, right? Taking 5 prizes in and of itself is not a particularly easy thing to do. The real difficulty here is the whole taking 5 prizes while being in the knowledge that you've got to stop your opponent even taking 1. Now, we do see here that Oranguru is recovering those Pokemon Catcher like we saw in the previous game. That shouldn't surprise anyone, incidentally. So, and to be fair, he's now got 2 energy on the Oranguru. So there is absolutely the possibility here of there is a possibility of potentially getting a confusion next turn. But again, if he gets the confusion next turn, he's still... He's still got the other Obstagoon to worry about, and that's my problem here. Every time I look at this and I go, right, here's what I think he can do, I go, oh no, wait, no, that's not going to work. Because of this. Every time I'm thinking, you know what, maybe Joe can pull it out this way, I then look again and go, oh no, wait, no, there's actually a clear counter to that. Now, we do see another Obstagoon here getting Air Balloon and Adventure Bag and basically making sure that Joe can get out of the active if he needs to. Not a terrible plan. And the good news is the Oranguru can take a hit, alright? The Oranguru can take a hit. But I'm not sure to what end. So the Oranguru takes a hit, okay. Then what? At what point does it turn into a win? I don't know the answer. And it's awkward. At this stage of the game, as a commentator, I'm sitting here and I'm going, right, what are the options? What can Joe do? What can Joe pull out of the bag to bring out a win here? And if we were kind of even on, say, 1 or 2 prizes each, I'd be thinking, right, well, Joe can do this, this, and this. Problem is, because David's got the double Obstagoon, confusion isn't going to work. Now, the good news is Joe's got all his Pokemon Catcher back. But... so there goes Martial Arts Dojo. And Air Balloon. The thing is, Stack Attacker makes a really good blocker here. The problem is, getting it out the active is like nearly impossible. It's got a giant retreat cost. That makes it extremely difficult. So, yeah. Now, he does get Stack Attacker active, and I don't mind this. The thing about Stack Attacker is you're basically just buying yourself time. It's there to... It's not really going to attack much, and it needs lots of energy to attack. But as it stands, it doesn't have the energy, and even if it had the energy, there's Obstagoon all over the place. So that's not going to work. What might work is buying a little bit of time. Remember, Pokemon Catcher will do it. What he really needs to do is take out the benched Obstagoon and then confuse the other Obstagoon and start whittling it down that way. That, I believe, is the route to victory. So, and this is what we see sometimes at the end of games like this. It is slow, and it is very, very, very measured. The plan here is essentially to just chill and just relax. Take things a little bit slow. Try and make sure that your opponent isn't in a position to win. Because that's the problem. I mean, one of the reasons why Joe's play here is so careful and considered is because he's got to the point now where if he gives up a prize, he loses. That's it. If David just takes the KO, Joe wins. So Joe's basically been playing keep away. For several turns now, Joe has just been playing keep away. Joe's plan has been, well, you can't KO this. Well, you can't KO this. Well, you can't KO this. And just buying himself a little bit of time. But as I've been saying all the way along, it's not enough to buy yourself time. There needs to come a stage at some point where the keep away stops and you start taking prizes. When does that happen? And how does he start taking prizes? That's the other thing. What's going to be the win here? What's Joe's play? I think it's all to do with kind of Pokemon catchers and things of that nature. So, Cinccino comes down. So, Joe's got a little bit of draw power. Remember, back in Game 2, that's what really lost Joe the game. It was a lack of draw power that lost Joe the game. But what now? This has been a very slow end to the game, Joe. But you can't blame him. Like I've said, what we have here is a very slow end to the game because one player is at a massive advantage over the other ones. And it's kind of either you start winning now or you just give up and scoop and go home and try again later. Except there is no trying again later. This is a final. So now comes down Pokemon Catcher. What's Pokemon Catcher going to do? It's going to bring the Obstagoon active. Now remember, that Obstagoon didn't attack last turn. So that's all right. That can be attacked. That can be taken down. Assuming he's got the stack attacker and can get out the active and blah, 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 blah. But assuming he can pull all of that off, he's going to be good. So up comes Oranguru. We sort of take Analyzer, getting the stack attacker out the active, so that's pretty big. And now the Obstagoon gets confused. And it does do 70, remember, because of the Martial Arts Dojo. One thing we need to remember with Martial Arts Dojo, it doesn't let your fighting Pokemon do an extra 10 damage. It lets your fighting Pokemon... Sorry, it lets any Pokemon with basic fighting energy attached do an extra 10 damage. That's very important. Makes a big difference. Problem is, David's still got the retreating option. Now, the Oranguru does take 2 hits to KO, and that retreating option is going to fall apart. The problem is, at any point here, at any point, when we see a KO from Joe, David can just win. And that's the issue here. David can just go, oh yeah, Umbreon KO. Now, the stack attacker can take an Umbreon hit, only just, but it can. It will remain with 20 HP. But that's it. So how does that work? So, presumably here, David's going to attack for 90, and that's going to hit the Oranguru. And then the Oranguru goes down to 30 HP remaining. It's a shame David doesn't have Pokemon Catcher. Pokemon Catcher would have ended this game by now. If David could just have hit heads on a Pokemon Catcher, this game would have been over. One really cool thing, of course, I've had the pleasure of commentating official Pokemon tournaments with both of these lovely chaps. Back when we did kind of the German and Italian nationals back at the tail end of 2016. I believe there was an international championship we were all at. I think I've done more tournaments with Joe than I have done with David, but even so, I've had the pleasure of sharing a commentary desk with a pair of these fine gentlemen, and not at the same time, 2-man to a booth. It's nice to see them, doing so well and getting on so well, having such a fun game. Now, we do see, I love that getting the Tate and Liza back with Cynthia and Caitlin. Remember, Joe's got some really annoying high retreat Pokemon here. So, oh my goodness. I don't... Like here, here's one option Joe's got. Retreat with the Oranguru, pop the Hitmonchan up, attack. Whack Stack Attacker up, Stack Attacker doesn't get KO'd. Then you Tate and Liza the Stack Attacker back, and then you attack with Hitmonlee to take out a bench. Oh, no, wait, then Umbreon KOs you. Oh, unless you hit the Umbreon for 90, and then you Hitmontop the turn after to KO everything. Could Joe do it? That is the potential route here. Oh, we actually got Lily's Pokédoll instead. Okay, so here's Joe's potential route to victory. Joe has the Lily's Clefairy active. And next turn, he uses Hitmonlee to attack into an Umbreon, somehow stopping Obstagoon attacking. And then the turn after that, he uses Hitmontop and gets Clefairy in the active, so he takes out all the bench and then wins? That's basically what it's going to take for Joe to... It's possible, but there's an awful lot of ifs there. Because he doesn't just have to Hitmonlee next turn. He has to Hitmonlee next turn while making sure that Obstagoon cannot attack, or otherwise it will get a one-hit KO. Because they've both got Vitality Band. And then he needs to Hitmontop, but he really needs something like Spiritomb or Pokédoll or something like that in the active, because an active Obstagoon that had attacked the previous turn wouldn't take the damage from Hitmontop. But there is a potential for Joe to clear the board in 2 turns' time. I think that's what Joe's seeing. I'll be honest with you, it took a while to set up and get rolling. But I think that's the play here. That's got to be what Joe's thinking of. So now we get an energy on Obstagoon. David just preparing. Because now, of course, if Joe is able to hit the Umbreon with Hitmonlee, he then needs to avoid an Obstagoon. And if David had no energy on one Obstagoon, that would potentially be an option. It's not an option anymore, unfortunately, because that Obstagoon now needs 1 energy to attack. So if that Obstagoon was in the active, David could go energy KO. He needs a catcher heads. What does he even bring active? Because if he brings the Umbreon active, he can't hit it for 90, which he needs to do to start getting a bunch of KOs. And if he KOs anything, Umbreon KOs him back. So he's got to hit the Umbreon with Hitmonlee. But either the Obstagoon active can just KO the Hitmonlee, and Lily's Pokédoll active can be put under the Dex, so he can be KO'd with Obstagoon. So it's avoiding a KO that's the problem here. He needs to hit the Umbreon to set up the big Hitmontop next turn. But unless David benches something, it's got to be Stack Attack, and that's the only thing that can take a hit and prevent the game being lost. The problem is, unless David benches something, there is nothing that Joe wants in the active. Umbreon will return KO, Obstagoon will KO, Lily's Pokédoll will go under the deck, allowing Obstagoon to KO. Joe's actually not in a terrible position here in terms of taking KOs. Taking KOs is fine. The difficulty here is actually trying to do it without giving up a KO. That's nearly impossible. Might be impossible. He hits tail. I would love to know what Joe was going for there. And it looks like Joe's going to deck out before David, so I don't think that's an option here. I feel like if this was game 1, the scoop would have happened like 20 minutes ago. And what we've got here is Joe just really going for it and going, oh, and it looks like he's finally given up the ghost. It looks like Joe has finally realized, as I was saying, that there is literally no way to win. He was completely and utterly locked out the game, because at any point, if he actually took a KO, David would just KO him back, and there was nothing that Joe could do to try and avoid it. So huge shout out to Joe and to David. Thank you to those lovely chats for taking part, for being involved, for, you know, joining in this lovely tournament of ours. It's been an absolute delight to commentate. Thank you to Dragon Shield for helping to put it together, and obviously to the lovely Stefan Eriksson for, it was really Stefan, Dragon Shield and myself that really put this thing rolling. We do have a champion now. David is your champion, but there is going to be one more video. It's going to be David opening up his goodies, David being interviewed, and you're not going to want to miss that one. There's something quite exciting I get to tell you about. But that one's coming up in a few days. For now, make sure you check out all the links in the description. Go check out these mats and sleeves and all of that. Check out my Twitter and Stefan's Twitter. It's all in the description. Go and have a look. But this game's gone on long enough, so all I need to say is thank you very much for watching. My name is Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.